And with that, we welcome you into lcpioneers.com live, presented by Pios Stream on the air, Facebook Live, Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time, and available on demand to watch at youtube.com/lcpios. Our show keeping you connected to student athletes, coaches, different members from our alumni community and the Lewis and Clark College community at large, 4 days a week. We certainly appreciate you starting your week out with us. Hi, everyone. I'm Ryan Goff. I am the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark. We are the Pioneers out of Portland, Oregon, and a member of the NCAA Division III ranks, competing with over 430 institutions at that level. As a member of the Northwest Conference against teams from throughout Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington, and opportunity for our student athletes to compete, but also experience overseas study programs. Lewis and Clark's sporting a very robust overseas study program that we continually talk about on the show, certainly keeping you in the loop about what's going on. With fall 2020, students are entering the third week of classes at Lewis and Clark, and we'll continue to keep you updated on our website, lcpioneers.com. Disappointingly, certainly with the coronavirus pandemic, all of the competition for the Northwest Conference suspended through at least January 1st, 2021. That's for fall sports and early winter sports as well, which includes swimming. And we will have a dual sport athlete on our show today. Kayla Piper will join us, a former student athlete for both swimming and volleyball. The opportunity to talk to her about what she's been doing since she graduated in 2014, and we'll explore that overseas study program too, because that had a big impact in her experience at Lewis and Clark. We'll have a chance to catch up with her in just a few minutes from now. We do invite you to get involved with the show. You can in our Facebook Live comments. You can do so below, or also email us anytime, sports@lclark.edu. An opportunity to suggest future guests, or perhaps you have a question for one of our guests, as we will show you toward the end of the show the rest of our guest list for the upcoming week. We also invite you to connect with us on social media. You can do so on Twitter and Instagram by following us at LC Pioneers on both. And one thing we're doing this year too, with the absence of competition because of the pandemic continuing throughout the United States, is we are having the opportunity to use our Pioneers of the Week section to feature student athletes. And we started off with two to begin the year. Esam and Sydney are on our Student Athletes of the Week, or Pioneers of the Week. You can find it either through the fan zone at the top of lcpioneers.com, or you can also click on the banner that's right below the front page of lcpioneers.com, and invite you to do that to check out what's going on with their senior seasons as they move into senior year in fall 2020. We've also had them as prior guests on lcpioneers.com live, and we continue to update our YouTube playlist. As I mentioned at the top of the show, you can find that at youtube.com/lcpios. All of our shows dating back to the final day of March earlier this year, so be sure to check that out as well. And with that said, we bring in our guest for today, a former Lewis and Clark student athlete, dual sport student athlete for swimming and volleyball. Excited to welcome Kayla Piper to the show on this Tuesday. Kayla, appreciate time to take a few moments out and getting ready for the upcoming year. I'm going to ask you about where you're at currently, but I want to start with where it began. When you look back at deciding where you were going to go for college, what ultimately led you to Lewis and Clark?
Yeah, so I grew up in Missouri, and I knew that I wanted to go somewhere else. And my mom had actually gone to school out here when she was in college. She went to Western Oregon, and so I thought that was a great state to look at. And I have family out here, extended family. And so I kind of just, me and my mom hopped in a rented car, and we just drove up and down the valley checking out different schools. And I came to Lewis and Clark. It was super rainy and kind of like dreary weather. And I thought the campus was gorgeous regardless. And I was like, well, if it's this gorgeous on a bad weather day, what must it be like when it's sunny and that sort of thing? And I went and I met, I was interested at first at swimming. So I went and met Chris. He just happened to be in his office, and we chatted. And I was like, oh, I think this is like, I just had a gut feeling right away that it was a really the choice that I wanted to like pursue. And the more I learned about the school, the more I as far as like being a small liberal arts school, and then I did like the recruiting trip and all of that sort of thing. But kind of just a gut feeling of walking around the campus that first day.
The origin story of our student athletes is one of my favorite things to ask, and then to kind of see how everything fell into place for you to compete in multiple seasons, especially doing fall, winter, and then I assume spring practice for volleyball. I bet it kept you busy throughout the course of your time. What was it about the opportunity to kind of stay busy and really get everything out of your 4 years at Lewis and Clark that appealed to you?
For me personally, like, as far as like time management and stuff goes, I do really well when I have structure, and I feel like athletics really provided a lot of structure for me. I was recruited for swimming, and then in high school, my senior year, I was like, I don't want to be done with volleyball. So that's where I went, and Lori Jepson was the coach at the time, and I was able to try out for that. But then having that structure from August until it was only like I would go volleyball straight into swimming. Swimming, they would give me a week off after conference, and then we would have a month of volleyball practices. And then I'd have like 1 month out of the school year where I didn't have sports. And that was actually the most challenging for me as far as like that was also final season and I had so much more time. I was like, oh, whatever, I have time for everything. And then no, you got to keep doing stuff. So it was really great to keep swimming. I had been doing for significantly longer in my life, but just changes of pace and being able to continue to do the things I loved at school was just an awesome opportunity.
We're talking to Kayla Piper, a former dual sport student athlete for Lewis and Clark. Kayla Ernewein, as you were known when you were at Lewis and Clark. And I mentioned this at the top, an opportunity for you to not only compete in multiple sports, and I'm going to probably ask you about a story or two that comes to mind when you think about it, but looking at the other side of it, the academic piece, you did have an opportunity to do overseas study. And I love bringing that up because Lewis and Clark offers so many destinations, so many opportunities for overseas study. What did you get out of that program and where did you go?
So I decided to go to Italy in the spring, and it was just amazing. It was that full immersion course, like staying with the host mom, and she's amazing. I'm still in contact with her, and I had always just been fascinated with Italian culture, and part of my major was religious studies and classical studies, so it kind of fit in with my degree as well. And then while I was there, I learned I was in the city of Siena, and it's part of this ancient pilgrimage route that goes from Canterbury, England to Rome, and eventually would go to the Holy Land. And so I had learned about it there, and then I kind of just made a decision. I was like, you know what? I want to, after I graduate, do this pilgrimage. So about a year after I graduated, I was able to do that, and I did it with a friend of mine, and it took um, 3 months to do, 82 days, I believe, 83. And it was amazing, life changing. And I actually, when I went through Siena, was able to meet up with my host mom again and hang out with her and eat together. And so yeah, it was an incredible experience that then led to another incredible experience in my life.
Well, and I think that that's some of the things that I hear echoed most about when I ask this question about, what'd you get out of your time at Lewis and Clark? It's that experiential nature where maybe you're going for major A and then you shift to major B, or maybe you're thinking you're getting one thing out of an overseas study program. In your case, you found like another chapter of your life. How does that statement that I just made kind of reflect some of the things that maybe you got out of your time at Lewis and Clark?
Yeah, I kind of went, and it was something like I knew I had wanted to leave. Like Missouri's more conservative than Oregon, and I kind of went because I wanted to experience something completely different. And then the longer I was there, just more and more, I was like, oh, I want to be. I thought I was going to be an anthropology major, and then I took a religious studies course, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is so fascinating, and the opportunity to just grow and change and just kind of pursue what you want to pursue was really awesome. And like being able to learn um I loved religious studies courses. I still am like, I'm not, that's not where my career has ended up, but it's still an integral part of my life. And I remember like a big draw was the small class sizes, but then I chose a major that was also small within a small school. And the like um, the communication between myself and my professors and those kind of relationships building, and with there was only like 7, I think, of my degree. The bonds you could create there as well just was more than I had imagined it would be at the time when I first was going.
Well, let's shift back then and focus back on athletics. Record-setting time as a member of the swimming team for you. Your name's still in the top 10 lists in many places. When you think back to camaraderie with the team or coach fonts or any of the other aspects of competing for Lewis and Clark swimming, what were some of the best moments, best stories that you had from that time?
Um, just like I really remember our team bonding experiences, getting to be with each other. I'm still friends with a lot of my teammates, really close friends. And one thing I loved was I'd been swimming for so long that I was starting to reach a little bit of a burnout point. And then going to Lewis and Clark and being able to swim, it was like completely refreshing and revitalizing my love of the sport. And a lot of that had to do with my teammates, and just being able to be goofy together. And when we were just exhausted with spring training, we were all able to like commiserate together and hang out. And then same thing with volleyball. My teammates there are amazing. It's a little bit of a smaller team for that, but yeah, we were able to like bond so much and have fun. I think just recently on one of my Facebook memories was a memory of us pranking Lori by scaring her in a hotel room, and it's just like I look back at that and it's so fun, and like the ability to pursue athletics with just a tight knit group of people was really enriching.
Kayla Piper joining us, lcpioneers.com live. You can watch us Tuesday through Friday on Facebook Live, available on demand, youtube.com/lcpios. Kayla, a member of the class of 2014. And, you've stayed relatively close now in the Salem area. Once you graduated from Lewis and Clark, what was kind of your path? What kind of came next?
So, like I mentioned before, I took a year off to just plan, prepare for that pilgrimage I took, and then once I completed that, I was a little bit floating in the wind as far as like what I wanted to do exactly, because I had that specific mission of I'm going to plan and prep for this. And I ended up moving down to Salem because I was engaged to another Lewis and Clark former athlete, Brandis Piper, and because he was working as a teacher at Staten at the time. And we moved in, and then I just kind of ended up at applying for a job as an assistant in a Head Start preschool. And that it was kind of another one of those moments where it clicked with me as far as like I started getting more and more engaged with like the exciting aspects of early childhood education and the ability to really see and shape young children's mind at such a critical age for their social emotional development, as well as their like the backbone and the base that you're creating for their entire education. So it kind of just was a little bit of happenstance, but then like having had a degree at Lewis and Clark really set me up to move quickly from a part-time assistant with a little bit of extra training and a certification into being a teacher. Um, so yeah, that's where I'm at now. I've been in this program for a few years now as one of the lead teachers and starting to learn about virtual learning for preschool.
You read my mind, because that's going to be the next question. Is we've discussed with a lot of our current student athletes, we've had coaches on the show since the pandemic began, and most competition was halted around the middle of March. How have you adjusted with the pandemic? How is that impacting early childhood education? And I'm going to give you the biggest thank you in the world in a little bit, because my son is 5, and our pre-K teachers, preschool education teachers that he had were amazing in the middle of March and all the changes. But I want to give you an opportunity to kind of give an insight into what challenges you've had to deal with kind of in your role now.
Yeah, so probably one of the biggest challenges that I'm sure all teachers are dealing with is um, just how do you get engaged, especially with preschoolers where they're not reading yet. And so everything is like, okay, how do we create visuals and engaging content for them? And I think a lot of my role, especially now, is really around family support and being able to help, because parents know their kids the best, but they don't necessarily know the education nitty gritty of all of that information. So it's a really opportunity for me to build connection with our families and talk to parents about, okay, what is the most important for you for your child, and what are they individually struggling with, and what are their strengths, and being able to kind of cater a little more to that as parents have like what materials they have at home. I work with Head Start, so it's typically lower end income folks. And so kind of really helping them to problem solve. Okay, well, what can we do in this situation when already we're having to do everything virtually? Then there's other barriers and things. How are we able to work with that? And it's going to be challenging, but I think overall it's going to make us as educators um, better at that relationship with families and students and teachers all working together for a child's education and for their goals.
Now, we'll have you give us the obligatory Brandis Piper update because I know that he's had a lot going on too with the head coaching. Maybe a future guest on the show, but kind of give us an insight onto what Brandis is up to.
Yeah, so this will be his second year as a head coach at McKay football. He's really excited with it. They were able to do some socially distanced football stuff over the summertime, and that was really enriching for him right now. The season looks like it's going to be a spring-ish season as far as the current outlook goes, and he's really been looking for ways to keep his students engaged in their academic learning, keeping them physically active. He's a real big proponent of having multi-sport athletes, and right now is really the time where that's necessary, where football, because of how high contact it is, may be under different regulations than other sports. And so if he gets more and more of his students becoming multi-sport athletes, he's better able to support them athletically and academically. And then as far as like what he's doing besides coaching, he's also an instructional coach. So right now he's in full day meetings of he gets information from the district about programs and stuff. He learns them as best he can, and he creates information for teachers and like videos and help support. And then he turns around and gives that information to educators of, okay, how do you use Zoom? How do you use our Canvas platform? And how does that work with students and everything? So he's been a real big part of this transition as far as helping to support educators as they're having to learn all these different platforms.
Well, I'll say it again formally. Thank you so much for your hard work to try to get school to happen. I know that families are rallying and trying to get everything in place. I know our students start in our school district tomorrow, so we'll be having the 2 desks that we have in the dining room with virtual learning, and you're such a big part of that for many families in the Salem area. Also with the fires, I know that that's been having an impact as well. Just I hope things are as good as it possibly can be, Kayla. But I'm happy you found a home in Oregon, and we're certainly grateful rather that you take the time to join us today. Kayla Piper, thanks so much for being our guest on lcpioneers.com live.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a fun conversation. It's amazing the type of work and the type of innovation, ingenuity that people are showing right now. And for those in the education field like Kayla, I'm amazed. I mean, we just got my daughter's 4th grade teacher sending us YouTube videos and trying to keep faces in places where you would otherwise see them. I mean, imagine when you're going through 3rd and 4th grade and not having the opportunity to see your teacher, but maybe like once or twice a week. That was not the way it's supposed to be designed. And the extra effort that people are putting into place, and even talking like she mentioned with Brandis, the extra effort that people are making right now to make things happen is super impressive. And she was, again, I'm not exaggerating, so thankful for her time, because she texted me a couple days ago and said between getting ready for school and the fires, because there's many wildfires right now throughout the Pacific Northwest, throughout the state of California, even into Idaho and Montana. And then, of course, Hurricane Lucy that's going on in the Gulf. It's just a lot of stuff that's happening right now, and weather and medical related with the pandemic. That's something that I wanted to make sure she knew is it was 15 minutes. She jumped on. I texted her to get in the Zoom room so we could have her on. I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone who takes some time to come out and join us on the show, because that gives us an opportunity to stay connected and to be able to have moments where we get to talk to our student athletes and our coaches and our alumni like we would. But right now, just trying to have a level of normalcy as much as possible. So big thanks to her for joining us on the show. And as I mentioned, we have a pretty good guest list coming up. I don't have the graphic updated. I realize now that I don't have it ready to go, but we do have a full list this week. On Thursday, we're going to have Brian Smith, who is a senior from men's basketball, joining us. Transfer junior in the 2019-20 season and just led the Pioneers in so many ways. Set a record for 3-point percentage in a game, I want to say. Tied the school record in that mark. Was one of the best scorers in the conference and for Lewis and Clark last year. So excited to talk to Brian. Tomorrow from softball, we'll have Lindsay Yearman join us. She is a member of the class of 2017 and was an outstanding softball student athlete, but now with her Lewis and Clark degree is doing some pretty exciting things as researchers continue to try to find a way to minimize coronavirus and the pandemic that it's put on the world and our country. So she's had a big part in that, and while we may not be able to get into some specifics, she'll give us an idea of kind of how she's contributed to that effort as well. And then on Friday, Eric Del Prado, who's the assistant coach for baseball, will join us. He was a student athlete in the Northwest Conference as he competed for Willamette, and then has been on Coach Matt Kozdurka's staff for a couple years now. So I'll have a chance to catch up with Eric. We'll talk Padres. I mean, his Padres are playing great baseball right now, and just how baseball has had an impact in his life. So we're still putting things together. We're back in Studio B, the mobile studio for Pios Stream, as we're back in the bedroom at my house. Smoke continues to be a problem. Just please, I know things are tough. If you're having any tough times and you have no one else to reach out to, you can always email sports@lclark.edu. I'll write you back, because we're just trying to have the best time we can in the most uncertain of times. So until we talk to you again tomorrow with Lindsay Yearman as our guest, I'm Ryan Goff. Thanks for having fun with us. Big thanks to Kayla Piper for joining us on the show. And we'll look forward to talking to you more on lcpioneers.com live Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live and archived on youtube.com/lcpios. Goodbye, everybody.
I'm Ann Bentley. I'm an associate professor of chemistry, and in this research group, I supervise the 2 students working in the Rogers program this summer in our lab. The brown bag experience is a good chance for students to get experience presenting their work that they've done in the lab, especially to an audience that's not technical.
What's intriguing about the brown bag experience is it incorporates all of the Rogers program. So I'm able to hear people in the psychology department and what research they're doing, but it also gives us the opportunity to share our research with the greater science community at Lewis and Clark. And for incoming students, the summer program is really beneficial for getting opportunity in research. So I've had the opportunity for research in the past, but other students may not have the same opportunities. So it's nice to work in a professional lab setting and potentially have the opportunity to publish a paper, which looks really good moving on into doing professional research out in the field.
The students grow a lot during the summer in their ability to learn the techniques and apply the techniques and suggest their own ideas for what could come next and interpret their data. It's just a big, usually if they haven't done research before, they learn a lot in that short period of time.
Hi, I'm Nick Lombardi. Something I've learned at Winterim this year is how to communicate a vision.
My biggest takeaway from Winterim is probably the networking. Getting to talk to everybody, connect with people for the future is one of the most valuable things, and I did Winterim last year, came back for more this year.
I think a way in which my liberal arts education has really helped me and my group formulate our ideas is that concept of critical thinking and having many different backgrounds. Me being an econ major and my 2 group mates being chemistry majors, we really get that well-rounded background, well-rounded ideas.
I think overall it's absolutely worth doing. You find yourself not only being more prepared for, say, this next semester, on top of being more prepared for life in general.